Hey there everybody, TheProfessorCloud here with the last video in my Battle Mage guide, this being a Dex Int based Battle Mage guide. And this last video is going to cover the Lakes of Liurnia. And this is a part of the guide that really is not 100% required. You could very easily take the build that we have at the end of Caelid, where we've gotten the Meteorite Staff, we've gotten Rock Sling, and you could build off of that with whatever you wanted to do from that point on. However, I wanted to give some additional things if you wanted to take a step further. Maybe you've only beaten the game one time, and you're still not tremendously familiar with all of the things that are available in Elden Ring, especially from a wizarding perspective. The other thing is I also want to give you some optional things to keep in mind for maybe middle of your build rather than late of the build. Because remember, I've already shown you what the things are going to look like for the beginning of the build. I showed you what my build looked like at level 108. I'm going to show you again what my build looks like right now at level around 120, 125. And talk about why I made the decisions that I did based off of specific bosses that I fought. But at the end of the day, it's your build. You do what you want to do. I want to help you get there, and I want to help you be successful. So let's go ahead and jump back into Elden Ring. We're going to start from the Grace Point right underneath of Castle, and we're going to go directly into the Lake of Liurnia. There are 4 primary things that we're going to be focusing on. A Memory Stone, Golden Seeds and Maps, of course. There are 2 Somber Smithing Stones that I definitely want to make everyone aware of, because even though the Meteorite Staff cannot be upgraded, your next staff 100% will be upgraded. Whether you decide to go with Lusats or whether you decide to go with the Carian Scepter, either one of those are going to require Somber Smithing Stones for upgrade. The Staff of Loss, on the other hand, if you want to use that one to help bolster your night spells, that one just works off of regular Smithing Stones. So, let's go ahead and jump back in. Battle Mage level 15. Now, one of the things that we're going to be doing that I'm going to talk about that is 100% optional is going back and killing the Scion from the beginning of the game, which can be accessed from here in the Lake of Liurnia. However, in order to really be effective against the Scion, because he loves to bring up that big, huge tower shield, you really need to use that Ambush Shard spell that we picked up in Weeping Peninsula. However, that requires an intelligence of 23. Right now, my level 15 has only got an intelligence of 20. So one of the things we are going to also do in this is we're going to work to get our intelligence up to 23. We will attempt the Scion, and I'll talk about exactly why. But I'm also going to tell you about another option for doing something different if you don't want to take on the Scion. So first thing is, let me start morning time. I always prefer doing mornings unless I'm very specifically going after the Deathbirds, or I'm specifically going after the Night Cavalries. So you'll notice that I am in the Grace Point that is just south or just north of the castle, and right next to Church of Erith. Make sure you go in there and pick up your tier. So let's go ahead and get on our horse. Now, the very first thing that we're going to do before we actually head into the lake and pick up the first Grace Point is we're going to go right over here. You're going to need to do this as quickly as possible, but make sure that you get the Academy Scroll. Because that has the Great Glintstone Shard spell, which would be the successor to your Glintstone Pebble. And it costs 2,000 runes to actually purchase once you turn the scroll into Sellen. And we'll do that at the very end of the video. Alright, so I'm going to head down here to the first major Grace Point at the southwestern tip of the lake. And then from here, we're going to go pick up the first map piece. Now, one thing I am going to do right now is I'm going to make sure to kill the 3 enemies that surround and not because they give a lot of runes, but simply because it makes it easier, and we need as many runes as we can get in order to get that intelligence up to 23. So I'm going to go ahead and head for the next grace point, which should be right up here near the ruins. I'm going to go ahead and grab the glintstone cookbook. You don't have to. That is not a requirement for this, but it's right there, so I went ahead and did it. All right, so we look at our map, and we now have the Laskyar Ruins and Liurnia Lakeshore grace points. The next big thing is we want to go ahead and start heading for the Academy, and we're going to get the Golden Seed. We're going to get the map for that as well. But to make it a little bit easier on myself, I'm going to head for the bridge here, because the bridge has a Site of Grace on it as well, specifically right there. So we're going to go ahead and do that first, and then we'll head directly from there along the bridge to pick up the map, pick up the Golden Seed, and then we'll go from there. So, because I'll be honest with you, at this level that we're at right now, with this power level that we have, we do not want to take on what's in Laskyar Ruins. That would be a very big risk. The other thing is I didn't want to take a direct route from the Laskyar Ruins to the Academy, because that then puts us in potential harm's way. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Of lobsters. Yeah, I was absolutely afraid of that. There are lobsters along the eastern shoreline, and I don't know where they all are. I'll be completely honest with you. So we'll pick right back up from here. And we'll head directly, I'm going to do a beeline directly for my dropped runes. Because that'll actually give me a better opportunity to stay away from the lobsters that are along the shoreline. But I also have to stay away from the horsemen. As well. Alright, I think we did a good job of... Yeah, we did a good job of getting around the lobsters. Unfortunately, he still showed up. Alright, so you notice that I did stop to get the balloon. If you did not already know that, make sure that you hit every balloon that you possibly can, because they do give you a Golden Rune 6. And this early on, that is extremely powerful and will help leveling up a whole lot better. Alright, so we've now gotten the Great Gatestone Bridge. We're now going to head to the next map piece, which will open up the western side, or the central side of Lake of Liurnia. Let me go clear this one. And then we'll pick up the Golden Seed, which is immediately afterward. We're then going to swing around Raya Lucaria Academy, as there are some graves, or not graves, sarcophagus, which always have a good amount of runes. And then we're going to head from there over to the Western Shore to pick up a free memory stone. And you heard me right. It's a free memory stone. The tower is actually wide open. And that'll allow us to equip Glintstone Pebble, the Carian... Hold on one second. Carian Slicer, Rock Sling, and the Ambush Shard. And that should be, in my humble opinion, the 4 primary spells that you're going to start with this Dex Int-based Battle Mage build. Alright, so let's head to Raya Lucaria Academy. Now, I'm going to head directly along the Broken Bridge because there is a Golden Rune 3 right up here that I'm going to try and pick up along the way. And I say try because doing it on a horse, obviously, it's a little tough sometimes. But by going along the bridge, you make sure that you reduce the risk of running up on any lobsters. Alright. So we've now got the Academy Gate Town, Site of Grace, and we're just going to head along the town line until we can get around the Academy, as there are a set of sarcophagi along the right-hand side. I don't remember exactly where, and unfortunately the map doesn't really show you, but we'll definitely see them. They are surrounded by poison blossoms. But the first thing is let's go grab ourselves another golden seed. So I've got to remember where it is. I think it's further up. Yeah, there it is. It's a little bit more interior to Academy Gate Town. That's why you can't always see it from the Site of Grace. Okay, so now, as I said, we're just going to head along this right-hand edge until we come to the Poison Blossoms and the Sarcophagi. And I definitely recommend staying along this right-hand side because, as you can see, the lake is just full of Poison Blossoms. And you're not going to be able to clear all of this at one time. So, get what you can. Gotta be honest, I'm getting kind of lucky here because the big one has not started shooting its stars at me yet. Alright, I didn't clear all of them. There we go. Alright. So I'm now going to run for the hills. Now, if you want, there are some smithing stones in here. But, again, you need sombers, not regulars. Alright, the next thing is I'm going to head to the Western Shore and along this set of ruins here till I get to the other side of them. And on the other side of them is another Site of Grace that we're going to grab. And it's just out here in the middle of the lake, actually. So you can see it right there. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and sit down here because I want to show you exactly what our build looks like. Plus, we got another charge flask, so we definitely want to do that. Then we're going to allocate our flask charges. We're currently at 5-3, so let's go 4-4. And then the next thing is I want to show you exactly what my spells currently look like. So, you start the game with 2 spell slots. We picked up the third, if you'll remember, in the Weeping Peninsula video. We're now going to go pick up a free 4th that is right over on the Western Shoreline. We're then going to head along the western shoreline until we see balloons. And we're going to go and kill as many balloons as we possibly can, heading for a Somber Smithing Stone 4. We're also going to pick up a couple more Sites of Grace, but then from that Somber 4, we're going to head back inward and pick up a Somber 3. So that'll give us Golden Seeds with a new Flash Charge, a free Memory Stone, the Academy Scroll, and both a 3 and 4 level Somber Smithing Stone. At which point then we'll stop and we'll talk about the optional things. Alright, so from here you can see the Minor Erd Tree right there. To the left of the Minor Erd Tree, right there, is a spell tower. That's what we're going to head for. So the first thing is we got to avoid the octopi. And then we're going to stay under the Minor Erd Tree so that we can stay as far away from marionettes, the Erd Tree, soldiers, all of those kinds of things, as much as possible. See, there's a Erd Tree soldier right there. Let's avoid him and head directly to the spell tower. You'll notice there's another balloon out there that we can go and get after we're done. Now, there is, in fact, a Site of Grace right in front of the tower. We'll grab that first. And then just run right on in. And just like every other tower, it should look identical to what you're expecting. However, you'll notice there's no free Memory Stone. Cuckoo Glintstone, but that's about it. What you're going to need to do is actually use Torrent and go along this wall until you get to the back side, specifically right here, and then jump for it. Take the stairs up. And there we go. New Memory Stone. Perfect. So those are all of the primary things that they're optional, but I would highly recommend that you go and get them. Now, as far as really truly in case you were wondering, there's what the rock sling looks like. Just getting myself down. I'm going to go down here to the Site of Grace. I'm also going to go ahead and spend some runes. So we've got 2 number 6s. Let's go ahead and use both of those. And then let's see where we are. I actually don't remember, I'll be honest, from when I recorded the Caelid video. So yeah, we should be able to get a couple of levels out of this. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is put in 2 levels into Int to get me closer to that 23 number. And then as soon as I get to 23, I'm going to make sure to put in Ambush Shard. Okay, now, from here, everything that I'm going to talk about or do is completely optional. As this is a Battle Mage build, I am very much basing this build off of both high-end magic as well as the ability to do melee when needed. There are always going to be certain bosses, certain enemies that are going to be very magic resistant, or very gravity resistant, or very night resistant. And in those scenarios, you're going to need some kind of a melee weapon to build off of. I am a huge fan of Moonveil. I've talked about it from the beginning of the build, that is where I feel like in this Battle Mage setup, you're going to want to get to. But you can't get that sword, that katana, at the beginning. So you need something to take you over the edge. And you might be going, But Brian, I have Carry and Slicer. Why would I need a melee weapon? And I'm going to give you the perfect answer. Red Wolf of Radagon. The Red Wolf of Radagon is magic resistant. Now, not maybe as resistant as Renala is, but he is still quite resistant. And because of his movements, you won't have Night Comet to use. And he moves so fast that he actually can avoid Rock Sling. Now, you could 100% use Carry and Slicer, and if you go watch the no-hit runners that are doing sorcery only, that's what they use, because they can't use a melee weapon. But you don't have that restriction. So I highly recommend that you go down a path of starting with one melee weapon, and then as soon as you can, you feel comfortable going and getting Moonveil, and then building that up. And that's going to be a Somber Smithing Stone upgrade as well. Now, there is 2 different options that I'm going to give you for a melee weapon at the beginning of your build. The first, as I talked about, is going and battling the Scion, and doing that as soon as possible, so that you can get the Oriental Straight Sword. That is also a dex-based straight sword, so it will be a very good straight sword. You can level it up to, say, +4, and only level it up to +4 because those are Somber Smithing Stones that you can get very easily. And then, by then, you should feel comfortable going and getting Moonveil. Or, a second option, and I'm facing this direction for a very specific reason. I'm not going to go and get it. But if you know about the Albinaurics, and you know about the Albinauric village, which is right where I'm facing right now, specifically where that tree is, then you also know that there is that rock right in front of me. And by the way, I am going to edit these videos so that you can, I'm going to point the locations out. That you can go and get a crystal sword. Now, the crystal sword is more of a strength-based straight sword, but it does magic damage, so I don't consider it as good of a straight-up melee weapon as, say, the Oriental straight sword. Ornamental straight sword. But it's up to you. If you don't want to have to fight the Scion, you can go head over to the Albinauric village, and you can run Torrent directly to pick it up, and then warp out if you want to. So I just wanted to make you aware that is another option. But what we're going to do is we are going to go and fight the Scion, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, let's go along the western shoreline, because I want to kill the balloon. Alright. So, we're going to go along the western shoreline. Avoid all the octopi. We're going to go past the minor Erd tree. And we're going to go get the last map piece in Lake of Liurnia. We're going to pick up a Site of Grace. And then we're going to head out, and we're going to kill a whole bunch of balloons on our way to Somber Smithing Stone 4. There is another Site of Grace back there, by the way. I just don't have a reason to go it. Now, in case you were not aware, if you go down there, past the lobsters that we're seeing, there is another set of sarcophagi that you can go and grab the runes for. But that is completely up to you. Alright. Now, the next map piece isn't until way up here. So we're going to go ahead and go grab that. And there is a Site of Grace right next to it. Just be patient with me. That site of grace that we were just at is where we will start from to go and battle the Scion again. I'm going around this encampment, trying to avoid being attacked. Also avoiding the caravan. Yeah, the best piece of advice here is just stay along the cliff edge. Yeah, so you can see, look, we're standing right here. 1, 2, 3, 4 balloons at 2,000 each. There's 8 grand right there. That's 3, 4 levels, depending upon where you might happen to be at the time. So it's absolutely worth taking the time to go and grab. Alright, so we've got this site of grace, which is right below where EG is, and right below the Carian Manor. So we've now got the last map piece. And we were at the northern Liurnia lakeshore. Now, when we go to battle the Scion, want to go get to the Scion, we're going to go from the foot of the 4 belfries, because the 4 belfries is where you can get back to that section of the map to actually fight the Scion. But let's go destroy some balloons first. And we should be able to get 5 of them. Okay. So you'll notice there's another tower right there, and there's actually a site of grace that you could use if you wanted to just sit here and farm those balloons. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to waste the time. I don't want to waste your time, or mine for that matter. It would also be a great way to reset the marionettes that, you know, fell from the balloons that we did kill. There's one more balloon here. Okay. Now then. The next thing that we're going to do, and I'll bring up the map to show it to you. We're going to head to the ravine. Alright, I should be able to stop safely here. Okay. So, the ravine will take you all the way back to a cave that you can get smithing stone 4s and 5s. But before you go all the way down there, and by the way, there's, you know, a couple of sites of grace, there's another golden seed, there's great stuff back there. But right in here is a somber smithing stone 4. So that's what we're going to go grab right now. Then we're going to run along the eastern shoreline to grab a somber smithing stone 3, and then we'll head back to the belfries. So right back here is a guy sitting in a chair. And by the way, if you were not aware, that's almost always a good indication of either a smithing stone or somber smithing stone, is finding one of those guys in a chair. And then we're going to head right back along this eastern shoreline. Now, it's going to be quite a ways along the eastern shoreline, but it's right out in the open, just like that one was. You just got to know where to find it. It's basically past the other broken bridge out of the Liurnia Academy. There it is right there. So, to see it on the map, so there's the other entrance or gateway bridge out of Liurnia Academy. And this is where you will get Somber Smithing Stone 4. It's also right near the second cave in Lake of Liurnia that you can get Smithing Stones 3 and 4. So what we're going to do now is we're going to warp back to Foot of the Four Belfries, and we're going to take the optional path up to the Belfries in order for us to fight the Scion. But before we do that, remember, I need intelligence of 23. So, let's go back to our inventory. Let's use all of our 6s, except for I only clicked on one. Try that again. And this should put us in perfect position to not only get our intelligence to 23 at a minimum, but we should also be able to get our health up a little bit too. So let's go ahead and do... Alright, so there's intelligence to 23. I'm actually going to go ahead to 25. And then I'm going to put the remainder into health. Perfect. Now what we can do is we can sit and use that 4th memory stone, or 4th slot that we got, oops, wrong thing, and put in Ambush Shard. There's your 4 primary spells for the beginning of a build, and we have not even attempted going to Stormveil Castle yet. We have not gone to fight Margit at all, but I can tell you, with Margit, you're going to switch back and forth between Glintstone Pebble and Carian Slicer, or, if you don't mind the extra FP drain, using Great Glintstone Shard instead of Glintstone Pebble. Either one of them will work just fine. Margit doesn't have a ton of HP. 20k, I think, is... I'm not even sure it's 20k. In any case, in order to get the Oriental Straight Sword, Ornamental Straight Sword, I keep saying that wrong, I apologize. We are going to head up to there, right there on top. And I'm going to switch to morning again just to make sure, because I think we're getting close to nighttime. Okay. And what you're going to want to do is put the cliffside on your left. And then follow the path. If you're seeing the jellyfish, that's a good sign that you're going in the right direction. You do have to be careful, though. Once you get up to the cliffside, you got to make a right. But stay as close to the cliff as possible, because there is a magic ogre that is protecting the pathway right there. So, run past him, and then take the path all the way to the top. Because there is another Site of Grace right up here. There we go. And this is the Four Belfries Site of Grace. So what we're going to now do is we're going to go to this first tower. We're going to grab what's in this chest. The Imbued Sword Key. Imbued Sword Keys allow you to use certain teleporters. Not Sites of Grace, actual teleporters. So like you would have used to get to the Beast Sanctum if you did any of that particular content. In order to turn it on, we have to go to one of these wonderful, I forget what they're called, gargoyle, I think maybe, sections. We're going to use the Imbued Sword Key. That's going to turn this on. And this is going to take us back to where we first saw the Scion at the very beginning of the game. Now, I cannot guarantee that I'm going to kill the Scion on the first try. I'm certainly going to try. And I am, in fact, going to use my Flask of Wondrous Physic. Now, one thing, whatever you do, don't go walk back there to try and get those butterflies. Just don't do it. Just take my advice and don't do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and head on up to the fog door. And you'll notice I'm starting right with Ambush Shard. Actually, I'll start with Glintstone. Actually, I'll start with Rock Sling. And I didn't roll fast enough. Alright, so about 120 each. I'm not sure that I even need to use it. Alright, and that's about 130 each. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. So you're not seeing the spell, but it is in fact hitting. But it's hitting him from behind. It's a very weird motion. So, yeah, this is the best strategy, to just run around, stay as far away from him as possible. I got a little lucky there because I was very close to the edge. There we go. So I did beat him first try. And there it is, Ornamental Straight Sword. And as I said, this is a fantastic straight sword. You don't need his shield, but it is a fantastic straight sword to equip for very early on. Replace your short sword with it. Now, you'll notice one thing. It requires a strength of 10, and you only have a strength of 8. However, and I'll show this to you right now, and this is one of the great things about this sword. I'm going to switch to it. I cannot one-hand it, but I can two-hand it, and by two-handing it, it gives me a magic second sword. So I now have the Power Stance moveset. This is the reason for the Ornamental Straight Sword. This is what makes this such a great early game straight sword for a Dex-int-based battle mage. Now, as I said, Crystal Sword is another option. It's completely up to you. But this is my personal preference. I've been very successful with this. And then, as I said, around level 40 plus or so, I went into Caelid, I killed the Magma Worm, and I got Moonveil, and took Moonveil, and I'm using Moonveil right now. So, let's take a very quick look at where we are currently sitting, because we still need to do one last. Oops, I went the wrong way. We still need to do one last thing, and that's go and purchase the Great Glintstone Shard. So let's go ahead and make our way back out of here. There are things to pick up in this building up here, but they are very story-oriented and character-oriented. So I'll let you search for them, I'll let you find them, and then you can figure out what to do with them, or you can look it up. I am not somebody who's going to judge you for looking it up, by the way. But as you'll notice, there's really nothing for me to do here. And by the way, this is where you started the game. So, what I am going to... Well, there actually is something for me to do. It's to go through this doorway. And this is where those items sit. And as I said, I'm not going to grab them. I want you to find them on your own. Figure out what to do with them on your own. But, let's go ahead and... back to... Waypoint Ruins and Sorceress Sellen. We're going to give her the Academy Scroll, which is going to give us the opportunity to purchase the Great Glintstone Shard, and do the last piece, optionally. It's completely up to you. You can use Glintstone Pebble for a very long time, and considering how cheap it is from an FP perspective, that might be what you want to do.
There you are. Shall we commence the lesson?
So, we're going to give her the Academy Scroll.
Is that a scroll? Takes me back to my academy days. Very well. This is sorcery with which I'm not entirely unfamiliar. I'll be sure to incorporate it into one of your lessons. Never lose that inquisitive spirit, my apprentice.
And then we now have, so, Glintstone Pebble we already have. Swift Glintstone Shard isn't that powerful, not worth the coin. Great Glintstone Shard, then, is the step up from Glintstone Pebble. It is the next level. There is a third level. Glintstone Comet, I believe, is the last one. And instead of Glintstone Comet, what I recommend is finding Night Comet as soon as possible, because Night Comet will allow you to use spells against enemies that dodge a lot faster, because they can't see the shard coming at them, or the comet coming at them. So it is a very much a primary spell that I use in mid and late games with this build. I don't recommend Glintstone Stars. I don't feel like they do enough damage. I never use Glintstone Arc at all. A lot of people love Glintblade Phalanx, but each to their own. And then lastly is Scholar's Armament, which is it's a step-up version of Carrion Slicer, but it takes a lot longer and much more FP. I don't consider it nearly as valuable. So look, if you look here, the FP cost is 25. The Carrion Slicer is 4. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. You're losing speed. You're costing a whole lot more FP. And yes, you're getting more damage, but I don't think DPS-wise it's going to get you nearly as well as Carrion Slicer. So, with that, the last thing I want to show you is, just as a reminder, this is where you can take your Dex Int-based Battle Mage build. I've been having a great time with it. I did struggle with 2 or 3 bosses, specifically Elemer of the Briar and Fire Giant. There have been a few others where it's like, okay, I need to figure out the right spell combination or the right move sets. I needed to understand the timing, things like that. But for the most part, this has been a great build. This build has worked extremely well. I did, as I mentioned earlier, also struggle with the Red Wolf of Radagon. And that's because I could not use magic. I had to use the Ornamental Straight Sword. It was the only way to beat him. Now, I've heard other people beat him with Carrion Slicer. I've heard other people using other combinations of things. And keep in mind, I'm talking about this also from the perspective of I don't summon. I almost never summon. There are some very specific locations, very specific bosses, multiple bosses that I will potentially do. But I can tell you, in the build that I've been running for my lore run, that I'm currently at like level 120, somewhere in that neighborhood, I can tell you I have summoned one-handed, meaning no more than 5 times. And I think it's only been 3. I want to do everything myself because I follow and try to be as good as the challenge runners. So, with that, let me really quickly stop and show you my other build. Actually, let me grab the Great Glintstone Shard. And then that is where we will quit out of here. And then I'll see you in my other build. Okay. So here we are with my other build. This is my lore run plus all paintings plus all legendaries build. We are currently at level 125. And just to show you what I'm running, from an equipment perspective, I've got the Carrion Regal Scepter as my primary staff. I chose that over Lusat's because I felt like the plus 50% FP cost that Lusat gives you or puts on you to give you the extra damage, I don't think is worth it. So I go down the Carrion Regal Scepter path. I then, as I mentioned, am using Moonveil. Both of them are now at plus 10. I'm currently level 125. I also, you'll notice here, have a Wakizashi, and that's because it has the Assassin's Gambit Ash of War on it, and that's so that I can sneak through specific areas. You'll also notice I'm keeping both the Staff of Loss and Meteorite Staff equipped, and that's because if I end up using Rock Sling, I want the extra damage that the Meteorite Staff will give me, and vice versa, if I'm using Night Comet, I want the Staff of Loss to give me that extra damage for the Night Comet. All of that comes in handy. Then I'm using the Carrion Knight Armor for greaves, gloves, and chest piece. And then I recently switched from just a regular hood to the Twin Sage Glintstone Crown. And the reasoning behind that, oops, sorry about that, is because it greatly increases intelligence by 10 points, or 8 points I think it is, to the detriment of HP. So I lost a little bit of HP, specifically 100 points of HP, to get 8 points of intelligence. And that equates to 100 plus points of extra damage, depending upon the spell. And then I'm running Stargazer Heirloom, which raises intelligence. Graven School Talisman, which raises damage of your sorceries. Cerulean Amber Medallion, which raises maximum FP. And Radagon Sword Seal to raise dexterity, specifically for Moonveil. And then I've got currently 13 flasks, plus, of course, my Wondrous Physic. So, at level 125, I've got 35 Vigor, 25 Mind, 23 Endurance. I may pop Endurance up to 25. I haven't decided yet. Strength is 15, and that's really all that I need to carry Moonveil. Moonveil has a Strength requirement of 12. And an intelligence requirement of 23, which we already talked about. I was going to get anyway because of Ambush Shard. And then a dexterity requirement of 18. The big one for me was Carrion Regal Scepter. Carrion Regal Scepter has a intelligence requirement of 60. However, with the Stargazer Heirloom, the Twin Sage Glintstone Crown, my intelligence only needs to be... Matter of fact, let's actually remove this, and you'll notice that my actual intelligence is 70. So I'm getting 10 points of intelligence from the Stargazer's Heirloom. I'm getting 6 points from the Glintstone Crown, and 4 points from the Stargazer Heirloom. 5 points from the Stargazer Heirloom, for a total of 11. So, if you want to use Carrion's Regal Scepter, have those two things equipped, and then just have your intelligence be at 49, and you'll be fine. But that's pretty much it. 35 Vigor, 25 Mind. And let me, oops. Let me hide my face cam real quick. Here we go. So, 35 Vigor, 25 Mind, 23 Endurance, 15 Strength, 40 Dexterity, 81 Intelligence, and then Faith and Arcane I have never, ever touched. And you'll notice, I didn't put a lot of points into Endurance, I didn't put a lot of points into Strength or Mind, but I have, over time, added a few here and there in order to make me feel a little bit more comfortable. I am probably going to put some more points into Dex before I actually finish the run. I would not be surprised if my Dex wasn't closer to 45 or 50 by the time I finish. Intelligence, I don't really need to put any more points into Intelligence, to be completely honest. Running it at 81, I'm kind of at the max. It's going to be a law of diminishing returns now for amount of attack power that I'm going to get from my sorceries. The big key thing for me is getting the upgraded version of the Graven School Talisman, which you can't get until you get to Farum Azula anyway. But that will then increase the potency of my sorceries even more. So that'll increase that DPS even higher. So those are some of the things to keep in mind for late game. The great thing is, for me, with the exception of a talisman here or there, I had this build already finished, with the exception of the Carian Regal Scepter, by the time I was done with Renala. And was in. So by the time I finished Lake of Liurnia and was heading into the Altus Plateau, or was heading into Caelid to beat Radahn, my build was pretty well set. I had to use a different staff set for Radahn, obviously, because even though I had the Carian Regal Scepter, I couldn't wield it. But for the most part, my build was ready to go by the time I got to either Radahn or the Altus Plateau, depending upon what your particular route happens to be. So I hope this guide has been of value to you. As I said, I've really enjoyed this build. I'm looking, as this has been a more intermediate or advanced build guide than my getting started ones were, I'm actually hoping to do another one of these to do a upgraded version of the Archer build based on more of a intermediate or advanced skill set of, you know what, we're not going to worry about storyline. We already know where things are. Let's go get the best things right from the very beginning and start from the best. So that's going to be something maybe to look forward to in the future, is like maybe just one video to say, okay, here's how you would do it if you knew where everything was. So with that, I hope that everyone has gotten a lot of value from this. I hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, please make sure to hit the like button. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button if you have enjoyed the content. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. If you're interested in keeping an eye on the lore run, I will also be adding the entire lore run to YouTube in the near future. I just haven't finished it yet. I've only got a few more bosses left, but there are also the hardest bosses. So hopefully I'll see you all soon. And if you want to come and see me live, twitch.tv/TheProfessorCloud. Talk to you soon. Goodbye.